Welcome to the 11th Commandment, Spook. We got a special guest today. We got Danii and James from Flawless Whitetail, and we're going to jump into some topics that I know are near and dear to her heart, your heart. But before we do that, Danii and James, welcome to the podcast. Last we saw you guys was Indy at the ATA show, and you guys had a great turnout and a lot of people visiting the booth. Just give a little bit of breakdown of, what you experienced and some of the feedback and what you guys are working on right now.
Yeah, so the ATA was literally a blessing from the good Lord up above. I had no idea. I was never expected to ever have a booth set up in that place. So it was pretty humbling. And to have everybody show up that stands behind me and supports the vision and the passion that I have out here it was just awesome. I can't thank you guys enough for Brian all the way from Florida to Indiana, Spook, you and Marty came up and James was obviously there and my girls and dad and, some buddies of his that I've known since I was a little girl when really kind of all this stuff started. It was awesome to see everybody show up. One of my closest dealers, Gary from Michigan, him and a buddy came, and it was just really awesome to see everybody kind of pull together and show up for me and one for the bar that I'm trying to set extremely high out here in the industry. It was an amazing experience, and yeah, we'll be back. We'll be back next year, bigger and better than ever,
Love it.
hopefully.
Love it. Like Spook, you and I, we were, pleasantly surprised that there was definitely some more traffic this year at ATA show itself, and that was good to see. And then obviously, being there with Danii and James at the booth, you and I both talked that it was just nice to see that kind of turnout.
Yeah, I haven't been in a few years, and I really didn't know what to expect myself, just from a standpoint of, what to expect from just seeing people that I hadn't seen in a long time. Obviously, there were a lot of new faces there, but I was really excited about the response that I got and the recognition for the 11th commandment. How many people were watching and paying attention and with lots of questions and really got into it, and especially a lot of young guys. So it's good to see that people care about what you're doing, what you're saying, and then it's always great to see somebody kind of first time or first experience with something, and especially like with Danii and Flawless and ATA and getting a good response. And I've actually been responding to a guy on behalf of Flawless that Danii you talked to. I'd have to go back and look at his name, but he's been in the industry in some shape, form, or fashion for quite a while, and he's been consulting and telling other people what to do on their properties. And he was really been asking me about Flawless the last couple of days, and so that was all a result of ATA. So
Mhm.
yeah, it was really good.
Love
That's
it.
awesome.
So
Yeah.
today we're going to talk about a few topics that I know we can dig really deep into. And look, there's going to be a lot of these different conversations, this year. And Spook and I are really excited about what's to come. But I think one thing, people sometimes overlook this time of year is focusing on deer nutrition. And within that deer nutrition, it seems that it's usually a summertime fall focus, but Spook, I know you're big on this, but Danii, I want your insights on when we think deer nutrition, supplemental feeding is one. Number two is, food plots, mineral, and how do you, incorporate those things, let's say between, now and mid to late spring, and then we'll jump into some other time frames. And then within that, James, I know you've had some success stories that you've seen from it. I want to get your thoughts, and Spook, you've got, many, many as well. So, Danii, just talk about in general the importance of deer nutrition, let's say from now over the next 2 to 3 months.
Yeah, so right now, the most crucial thing is protein. So building their bodies back up from the stress of the winter, the cold, the rut, running hard. A deer can get pretty stressed out in those times. And right now, the most important thing, they can lose up to 30% of their body weight, in those harsh periods of time. So right now, the biggest, most crucial thing right now is going to be protein. Now, there's several different types of feed out here. There's a lot of different protein sources. Finding something that balances out, you know, the nutrient value in their diet as much as possible is very, very crucial and it's important. If you don't have, you know, you need to have the mineral content, you need to have a percent of like a good scenario of a certain percentage of protein, whether it's 16 to 18%. You know, that's what I choose to feed, and that's because how much more the deer thrive, especially the bucks, when it comes to protein levels. So there's several studies out there between Michigan State University and down in Missouri, MSU, of guaranteed tests that show the difference between feeding a whitetail 4 to 7% protein, 4 to 8% protein, and then going to like 16 to 18%. And it's a significant difference when you're talking, you know, just in a year, 2 years time span. Now, if you try to start transitioning their diet now to more of a healthier, nutritional diet plan, you know, you're not going to see results like right at the snap of a finger. You know, it's going to take a little bit of time to get everything to kind of adjust and balance out. But protein is the biggest thing right now that we're feeding pretty hard. And obviously, what we feed our pen deer is what we offer through the company. There's only one missing ingredient, and then the fat content is a little bit different. So the Trophy Tine Elite protein is what we feed. It's got 8% fat or 4% fat. And then for the pen deer, it's 8 to 10% fat. So a little bit of a difference there.
Okay.
As far as, go ahead.
No. I'm just keep going.
Sorry. And then also it has the mineral content in it. There's no corn, no soybeans. It's got natural roughage in it, which is basically a supplemental metal ingredient like woody browse, or and that's really crucial to try to keep their diet as close to wildlife as possible. You know, I tell people all the time, like, stop feeding your deer 50-pound bags of corn, and they look at me like I'm breaking the law by saying that, you know. But understanding what it does to their rumen and the things that it can cause and destroy that stomach lining, there's a lot of people that don't understand that. Corn is cheap. It's cheap for companies to put in their feed. It's cheap to go buy a $6 bag of corn from your local co-op or Tractor Supply and dump it out on the ground. But when they don't understand how a whitetail's body works internally, you know, that goes a long ways when it comes to their diet plan.
So and I completely agree as far as the importance and the different levels of protein. So and I think, look, people are going to use corn, but it's a matter of corn from an attractant standpoint or corn from a nutrition standpoint. And I think part of what I'm hearing you say is, like, this time of year when we're focused on the highest potential for the deer to get through the winter for antler growth, body, obviously a bag of corn is not going to give them exactly what they need. It's the other ingredients within that protein source that you're talking about that are going to be really important. So, Spook, I mean, from your standpoint, you know, when are you starting? And I know, look, for some people, it's a financial situation of being able to afford to provide protein year round. But when are you typically starting your protein, coming off of the deer season?
Yeah, I mean, as soon as it closes, I mean, I think it's important to actually, if you can, in the states where you can, if you're wanting to hunt over it, I would do it immediately, start like in December or Christmas time. If it's in places where you can't hunt over it, then, as soon as season closes. I started feeding here in January, and I will continue to do that on through while they're growing their antlers. But really, truthfully, I personally believe it's more important in January, February, and March than it is in, say, April, May, June, July. Even though they're growing their antlers during that time, this is the time when they need the better feed, because there's nothing, no good browse for them, which is also all goes back to the food plot part also. So if you know, like I have my flawless plots, I mean, I've got turnips and still got green in my flawless plots that I've planted back in the fall. So they're still hammering on those, and those are going to last. I mean, pretty much they'll get them through the winter also. And so a combination of those two is going to be what you're going to need to get them into April, May. Once you get them into April, May, yes, I love to feed protein during that time while they're growing their antlers. But if you're talking about from affordability standpoint, and you can only feed, let's just say that your budget is going to allow you to feed 3 months a year, I would recommend doing that in January, February, and March. We lost Brian. You there, Danny?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, we lost Brian. Can you see that on your screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, James.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Are you guys staying warm down there, by the way? It's still
Oh
cold down
yeah,
there.
it got crazy. Felt like I was in northern Indiana. We have a Generac generator here at the house, so we didn't have any problems. But a lot of people had problems, and it's crazy. It is so you can't even walk outside right now. We've got about 3 to 4 inches of solid ice. And what happens in the daytime, it warms up to 33 to 36 and it melts on top. And it is slicker than any ice ring you've ever been on. And then it freezes again at night. And I
That's
mean, it
crazy.
is a mess. Our back roads are all still solid ice. And it's been what, over a week and a half.
Yeah. I know I
Yeah.
called Brian the other day and he's like, I can't handle this. We're dying down here.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then we went to North Carolina. Marty and I did the last weekend. We were getting some health scans done on our bodies, and it snowed. They had the biggest snow that they've had in 25 years in North Carolina while we were there. So we got snowed in for an extra day there, waiting on it to get where we could get through. Actually, the really bad place in that patch is that 12-mile strip that you probably saw back a couple years ago on the where the interstate I-30 part of it washed off into that river.
Mm, hmm.
Those people died in that big flood, in North Carolina, and that was on our route. So that pass through there was really bad for a couple of days. So we had to wait for it to get cleared up so we could even get through. But there's an enormous amount of I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar operation they've got going on that interstate to fix all the mess that flood made. It is crazy going through there. It's kind of scary when you drive through that pass and you realize and you look and understand what really happened. And I can't imagine, just the timing of you happening to be coming through there when that thing fell off in the river. It would be a
Yep.
horrific way to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. But I don't know. I don't know. Let's see if he's
Brian said his computer crashed. He's rebooting it right now.
okay. Oh, there's something happens every now and then. It's just gotta. Here he comes.
Thanks. Must be the
Yeah.
cold weather down there.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
got you now.
All right, now I don't have you guys on. I'm so sorry. My lip just literally crashed. Okay.
that's our. It's got to be the cold weather down there.
Can you guys say something? I don't have any of you. Hold on. I mean, it might be me
Check.
saying. Now I got. All right. Hold on. Yep,
Can you hear me
hold on a
now?
second.
You got us?
I hear you. Yeah, but mine's still not. Something's on with my. It's not y'all. It's me.
Thank goodness.
I know, but I can't get my stuff to work now.
Did it get cold down there, Brian?
He's buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were worried about our cows, but we got we had a lot of hay and stuff, so they're all right. But yeah, it got definitely very cold.
That was about like when we moved our deer 3 weeks ago. We had that below freezing wind chill,
Yeah.
and that was kind of brutal. We ended up losing one doe, I think, that for pneumonia because of it.
It was like 30 below with the wind chills, and then now it's like 15 out, and it feels like it's summertime.
All right, I'm rebooting all my stuff here real quick. Good thing is we can just pick up from where we were. Come on.
You sweating. Just step out there and grab my water from Hattie. Wake.
Oh, I think we're good now. Yes, just had to reboot again. All right. So we're going to pick up from Spook. I'm just going to have you pick up from, I'm going to say, hey, Spook, based on that, when are you starting to provide protein? And then we'll just hit that and then keep going. All right, ready? So we're good. So Spook, based on that, when are you starting to add protein to your deer? I mean, is it, let me start. So Spook, based on that, when are you adding protein to your deer herd?
I like to get started as soon as possible after Christmas, New Year's, during that time. I mean, I think January, February, and March are really the 3 most important months. You're trying to get deer that have just come off of the rut and get them through the winter.
Okay.
And just as we've kind of seen in the last couple of weeks around the country, and especially here in Tennessee, where the weather has been its worst, I want those deer getting the best nutrition possible in these times when they don't have much of anything else. But this is also another really important time when you're a really good flawless food plot comes into play, because the food plots that I put out back in late August and early September now actually still look, good considering what time of the year we're in. The deer are still, hammering them. The turnips are laying out there. There's still a lot of green on those. And so, I think that's a big plus. And then being able to feed the protein right now. I personally think those 3 months are more important than when they actually start growing their antlers, because during that time, the spring bloom is coming out, and so they have access to other browse and things that are pretty high in protein. If your budget is only going to allow you to feed 3 or 4 months, my suggestion would be to start after Christmas if you can, and go through March into the 1st of April, and then there should be enough greenery popping up. Now that may, that'll change a little bit according to how far north and south you are, but you understand the gist of what I'm trying to
No,
say. And
absolutely.
yeah, I think that's, obviously if you can afford it and you can feed all the way into the time, feed a really high protein content. Obviously, if you can afford it, I'd recommend doing it year round. But if you've got to pick and choose, which most people do, then, I think it's crucial, my opinion, and Danny, you may see it differently, but those 3 months and then into the antler growing season, and then I just think that's the best time. But yeah, I've already started, so now's the time.
So, Danny, from your standpoint, you work with a lot of people in different parts of the region. I know a lot in the Midwest, but break down food plot strategy from now till, let's say, late spring, getting into early summer. What are some of the seeds that you recommend? And I know you've really worked hard to develop some seeds for even some of the southern states. So, I'd like you to hit on that a bit, because we have been talking about some of that to our buddies down here, but just in general in that Midwest area where a lot of people are obviously planting food plots, what's the food plot strategy for the next 3 to 4 months? And then break that down to some geographical areas and how it might differ.
Yeah, so right now, here in the next, for us here in the northern states, end of March, beginning of April, right when we start to hit that freeze thaw cycle, when it starts to get above freezing during the day and then gets right below freezing at night, that's when we start to hit a freeze thaw cycle. So I usually recommend people, like, if they have say a legacy blend plot or any existing clover plots, that's the time that you can frost seed, for instance, like the strut and grunt. So the strut and grunt is, man, I tell you what, it's like a favorite, fan favorite, my favorite. They're all my favorite, but that one right there, man, all of our deer pens are planted into it. And those deer are out there just destroying those pens, like, and it's not just there. We did some drone footage today too, also of we planted 60 acres last spring in May of the strut and grunt, and that one you can plant spring, you can plant it in the fall, but it is a perennial, obviously. But there's several different types of chicory and clover, and I'll kind of touch base. I'm not going to go in too far into the depth of it, but there are certain species of each species, if that makes sense. And some of them are hold a higher attractability rate, higher density, whether it's producing forage, whether it's producing helping build up the micronutrients in the soil. Like that blend, every blend that I have, each species does something beneficial, whether it's to help carry the nutrients to the other plants or whether it's to help build up the soil. So right now, early on this spring is the strut and grunt, the legacy blend. That's another alfalfa, chicory, clover. It's got German millet, oats. That's a good blend. So those are going to be your first two blends. Now,
Okay.
as far as food wise, but there's other sources for early on, March, April, that you can also plant too, but that's more bedding, screening, that kind of stuff.
So what are some of those things? Like when are you suggesting putting in that bedding and screening type of cover for somebody that maybe has been wanting to do it, but not sure of the time of year when to do it? And it may vary geographically too. So if you can break some of that down too.
Yep. So the blackout, which is RC, switchgrass, and big blue stem, that one, if you prep ground, like say down in your area in the down in the south, if you prep ground in like November, you can frost seed that in December.
Okay.
Cold to pack it and leave it alone. What happens is when you frost seed switchgrass in, it helps get a jump start on any of those weeds
We
that try
lose
to
you, Brian.
compete coming up, green up
I
in the
think we lost
spring.
him again.
So when you frost seed it, it kind of gives it a little bit of a jump start. And I
Brian,
always give all my clients, all
Danny, can
my
you hear me?
customers, even if it's just somebody that stops by the booth and talks at a show, I always give them a little bit of a pointer is plant your switchgrass with oats. Oats is a great nurse crop, and there's a lot of companies and a lot of people don't tell you that, but it helps carry the nutrients and it helps drown out any of the weed competition as the switchgrass is trying to get established. But when we, like, for instance, last spring when we planted it up here in the northern states, we planted it in May. We
He'll
planted
he'll
it
he'll
in,
jump back on. Just keep going.
we planted it in May, and we didn't cultipack this, but we just broadcast it. It's a really leafy, straight from the plant, straight from the seed heads. So it's really leafy and light. Just by broadcasting that and not cultipacking, we had switch that hit every bit of over 7 foot tall.
Wow.
And I'm talking in, what would you say, 5, 6 months? About 5 to 6 months time, it was over 7 foot. And we also planted that with oats too.
So, Danny, when you say you're planting it with oats, are you literally in the same container of how you're spreading it? You're putting both together in there and just broadcasting it in whatever device, or are you hand broadcasting it, or are you doing it through other means?
Well, that particular property, there is a lot of pockets that I generated out in a big, like 80-acre field. It was all open. Just kind of wanted to establish some bedding pockets for them to kind of break up, the openness and establish just a good habitat for them there. Usually I would broadcast it by hand because I don't do like big, massive strips of it. But no, I actually grabbed the fertilizer spreader and went to town with the tractor.
Got it.
And it was just fine. But the oats are not included in the blackout blend. So it's actually, you want to actually plant 20 to 30 pounds per half acre of switch. So that's what I recommend. So that's quite a bit of weight to add to the containers. So I usually just recommend people, it's cheaper to go to your local co-op and get a good forage oats, and that's what I use.
Got it. Yeah. And so, Spook, I mean, look, you and I have talked a lot about in your properties and your appreciation and love for some cover in a transition zone and some of these different grasses that you'll plant. and we're talking about how to do it. Is there a particular time that you've chosen to do that on some of your properties?
You talking about like bedding or screening?
Yeah, like a bedding or like a
Yeah,
transition
yeah.
zone
So,
coming
so for
from
sure,
hardwood
whatever,
to a food plot.
according to what seed and what you're using for the screen or the cover will dictate, when and where you plant it. I've had a lot of success. I've worked a lot with warm season grasses, switchgrass, blue stem, little blue stem, those things. And I planted that when I'm a lot of times, if I have a row crop ground that I'm transitioning or converting is a better word into just the ultimate whitetail habitat structure, that's what I like to use in creating the bedding, which also can you can utilize that as screening also. But I like to plant the
Mhm.
warm season grasses in bigger areas to create big bedding areas. And then I like to come in there in like August and bush hog just some trails, or you can even just take like a tract or a four wheeler and just ride down a couple of areas where you want to actually make the deer walk. And it works tremendous. But I love warm season grasses. I love converting. Properties that have a lot of cropland and you're trying to create more habitat. I love using warm season grasses to do that. Most of the time you plant your warm season grasses in a warm season time of the year, which is late spring and early summer. And it usually will take a lot of times you won't see your best stand out of it until the second year. Occasionally though, if you get good rain and everything goes really well, you'll have, 5, 6 foot switchgrass the first year by fall, but sometimes it may be the second year.
Yeah, no, Danny was just talking about the blackout. I mean, that they've had a tremendous amount of success with that. Let me ask you this scenario. So based on that, and Danny, I know you guys are coming down here and you'll see for yourself, but we have a lot of open cow pasture. We have these swamp heads, and they're big swamp heads where deer will travel through, but there's a lot of, cypress swamp heads, and then you got open pasture in there. And one of the things I thought of is do you kind of plant some of these grasses in between some of those swamp heads? Obviously at night they're going from one to the other and more comfortable, but in some of them that are a little bit closer, creating just some transition zones that they may be willing to use that during daylight hours to, go from one place to the next to where we might be hunting. What are your thoughts on doing that? And I know when you're down here, you'll see it for yourself, but just in general, kind of connecting little pockets of bedding to a food source.
No, I think constructing transition zones like that can be very, very beneficial. For instance, that's what we did out here in this 80 acres is it nothing but all open field. And what we did is we generated 6 different pockets, um, and created mouths for transition zones to get them to transition out of bedding into a mouth that opened up into food source. And these pockets are generated all around there with a water hole. And it helps hold them in there. So I think that when you can establish a transition zone like that with taller grasses and bedding, that security is the biggest thing. When they feel safe, they're gonna move. And if they just like a mature buck, if he comes out and scans a wide open field, he's gonna stay right on that edge and he's gonna see what he wants to see and he's gonna beeline wherever he needs to go. He's not gonna gotta get them to move. So if you can make them feel safe and secure, establishing those transition zones, I think is very beneficial.
Okay. Love it. So, James, let's just jump in a little bit of, some of the success that you've had, relative to, flawless products and, the different food plots and protein and things. Just talk a little bit about your property. What were some of the things that you guys did? And then talk a little bit about a before and after.
Okay, it was probably well, I bought this farm here where we're at right now. It's right close to 300 acres, but I bought it back in 2015. So I started with like a couple like 2 acre plots here, half acre here. I mean, we had like 3, 4 different sections where we were trying different types of and going back to what I know now versus what I was trying to learn back then, and I still don't know everything, or I feel like I don't know anything sitting here beside Danielle.
None of us do.
But the fact is, like, buying seed, planting seed, one year you would do good, the next year you wouldn't do good, right? And
Okay.
just frustration
We've
and
all
just
experienced that.
yep, and dumping thousands of dollars into it and just being frustrated. Um, so with that being said, someone told me here 3 years ago that I have to meet up with Danielle and talk to her about her product. And I was at that point, I was just ready just to give it up. Like, I mean, what's the point? What's the point? I mean, I was thinking, okay, my ground is so bad, without soil testing, without actually like, investing in fertilizer and trying to figure out, well, what does my soil really need? And so I went and talked to her and she came up and looked at the property and obviously like, hey, I'll cut you guys a good deal and this is what I'll do for you. And I said, well, we're very likely going to have to do soil sample and fertilizer. And she said, I've never fertilized any of my plots. And I'm thinking to myself, I said, well, I said, if your product grows on my property, I'm sold. Like, but you have to prove it that it's going to work. And so basically, I mean, she came out and at that point she was working in the factory. She was homeschooling her children. And I would get up, sometimes like at 11 o'clock at night, she's still out in the field working. One time she texted me like at 1 o'clock in the morning, said, hey, I just shut your gate up here. I'm headed out. And she was going to get up at 3 o'clock and go to work. I'm like, you're crazy. I mean, what's this all about? Like here, I'm a guy trying to, I feel bad because she's out there running this equipment and I'm just sitting back like, here, you do your thing. So, but that first year, I gave her a really hard time. Like I was probably not the nicest to her.
He was not nice.
But I was just like,
Shame on you, James.
I know,
Yeah.
right? But it's like my mentality was like, what sets you apart from anything else I've tried? It comes down to like knowing now the germination rate, the purity of your product, no weed seed. And it's just a quality of putting the balance of different blends together to help each other out. And that first year was a little bit of a struggle, but that second year, I mean, I'm talking like, I mean, that's why I'm sitting here right now because it's just history from here on out. The fact that, I finally have food source on the property that deer are just simply annihilating and the stuff is growing. Never put fertilizer on it. We've never sprayed it. And so if you can
And
be
never did
patient,
a soil sample.
never did a soil sample. And so if you can be patient with it, work through the process and allow that plant species to also put that nutrition back into the ground to help build your soil is very important. And with that set aside, I have to think back on the mineral side of things. So when I first moved to Michigan in three, I lived in Southwest Missouri. So coming to Lower Michigan, and obviously, to be honest with you, if you shot a 130 class buck, that was a monster for Lower Michigan. And
And
I
it's
was
just hard
one
to
that,
believe. It just is so counterintuitive to what you would think about Michigan, but go ahead. It's hard to believe.
yep. And so I was one of those guys that okay, give them nutrition. Make sure they have like the nutrition value. Well, I just didn't know better, so I was one that went and bought an entire skid of mineral. And over a span of 5 years or even less, I dumped 50 some pails of mineral out on a 150-acre property that I was hunting. I mean, I saw some progress with antler growth, but nothing substantial. And then 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when I started with her mineral content on the farm here, I mean, the jump that we saw from 6 months was incredible. And again, I had to look at Danielle. I'm like, okay, explain to me the difference in that mineral quality or just the balance of salt content versus nutrition. Like, and that's also what makes a difference with what she has in the mineral content, just bringing good nutrition to what these whitetail need for proper, not, and I say not only for antler growth, but I want to talk about immune system, gut health. I mean, it's just an overall balance when it comes to that. So
No, that's I mean, a great story, and I'm looking forward to having some of that same success down here in Florida. And look, Spook and I can both attest to the time that we've known you, Danny. Your dedication. Speaking of being out, working a tractor at 1 in the morning and dedicating yourself to your passion to create a product and a business that is not about marketing. It's not about just selling a product. It's truly about helping your deer have better nutrition and antler growth. That's clear. And watching you work at the booth and the amount of time you spend with everybody. So I think that that's part of what differentiates yourself. And Spook shared this with me early on as far as, what he has seen from you, not only a great product, but just what you put into it. So I just want to leave that, there for people. Danny, from a mineral standpoint, what are some of those things that are unique to your mineral? James talked about salt, and I know you reference sometimes some of these other companies will just, it's a very high salt content. But what are some of the other things in your product that truly make a difference with the deer?
So the overall vitamin levels, but the phosphorus and calcium was one of my major goals for that mineral is to get it off of an attractant based radar. Like I I don't need an attraction to sell. Like I don't need 50 deer digging holes in the ground. Like that causes stress. Stress eliminates antler growth. Like we'll go down a rabbit hole when it comes to that. But when it comes to the mineral, only 21% salt. You have to have some salt, but the phosphorus and calcium levels was one of my main focus points because of the antler growth. Like overall herd health is great too for lactation of does, milk production. Overall herd health is very important when it comes to minerals. By lot how many people want the bucks. You want to see that proven antler growth. And so the phosphorus and calcium levels is where flawless really stands out, and then that salt content being extremely low. And then adding in the higher vitamin levels and then the probiotic as well.
the
Okay.
one thing, just to go into this like a little bit, when I first put out her mineral content, I actually had a site where I had a salt block because I was still old school, and I had a mineral site with flawless mineral.
Old
And
school or doubtful.
well, let's just put it this way. But the thing is, what's interesting to me, deer will hit that salt year round. So coming to the fact that now towards the end of the summer, like they won't hit the flawless quite as much. But then as soon as I can, and what we're going to see now from first of the year going forward, they kind of bypass that salt and they're going to the nutrition side of things.
Mhm.
And it's what they crave. It's what they need.
And
And so just seeing that too firsthand was also something that told me that, okay, there is a difference between the nutrition side or as an
Yep.
attractant side.
and that's how it kind of separates itself from an attractability standpoint and actual nutritious value. So they're going to consume it when their bodies are nutrient deficient when they need it. They're not going to consume it year round like they would if that mineral had 80% salt in it. Absolutely, they'd hit it all year round. But having a lower salt, it's not there's not as much attractability in there, but more essential nutrient value. So they're going to consume it when their bodies need it. Once when things start to balance things out, then they'll move on and then they'll come back when they need it.
Well, and Spook talks about that a little bit too, in the sense of having your attractant in different food sources in different locations. And he speaks a lot about that as far as not having everything in one spot and in separating some of these things. And so I think that's a little bit of what you're talking about from a deer stress standpoint, and trying
Mhm.
to minimize that is spreading out, maybe your protein from, your mineral site to, another food source or something that you're using for your deer. So I know he speaks, Spook, you talk a lot about that, and that helps to minimize the stress on the deer. So, and so you guys are obviously focused on providing that mineral year round. They're gonna go to it when they need it. But the thing is if it's there when they need it, they're gonna get it, versus just thinking about it one time a year and they may not need that. But I love the idea of just providing it there year round.
Mhm.
All right, perfect. Spook, anything else as far as mineral from your standpoint of when you're really doing that again? Is that another year round thing for you? Is it something, a strategy from your standpoint you try to implement on your properties? All right, we can just cut that out because he disappeared again. No worries. All right, so Danny, talk to me. I'm just guys. I can cut this stuff out so it seems seamless, and none of this is, these breakups aren't here. Danny, talk a little bit. Danny, talk a little bit about this southern seed that you're formulating, and we're going to be able to use down here. Is there anything in particular what makes it unique to be able to, do well down here in some of the southern states?
Yeah, so last year, I had quite a few guys down in Georgia, Alabama that really wanted something for a drier climate. I took me a little bit of time to kind of construct something that was gonna help with the drier climate, help with the drought, different temperatures, what's gonna thrive and what. And I came up with a blend that I released last year called Sandy Delight. It's got small burnet, chicory, sandfoin, bird's foot, and salinity max. So these are a lot of species that like us northerners, central region area people that would probably have no idea what these species even were. If you look up, it's this blend is gonna look more like a natural vegetation that you're gonna see come up. So it's gonna be more of a stemmy browse. It's gonna be more viney. It's gonna produce some seed heads. Is can mature within 4 to 8 weeks. Seeding depth can be super easy, so you can broadcast it. The bird's foot seed is a little bit thicker, so I usually try to recommend people if you can get it cultipacked if you're broadcasting, that would be great. But this is an extremely drought tolerant blend. 3 pounds covers a quarter acre. And then also as far as planting zones, like all of that stuff's on the website also. But for like Brian, your region, you're gonna be in, like, zone 3, which is gonna be early to mid-spring, late summer, and that's also a perennial blend, so I'm excited to see what that does down there by you, Brian.
Okay. Let me ask you this though. I mean, there are times when we're in drought. And right now, we are in a bit of a drought. We're really dry, but it will get wet. Will these do well if it is there's a moisture in the ground as well, or does it need to be like this is a drought type of?
No, 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 no. I mean, you have to have moisture. I mean,
Yeah.
things can't grow
Okay.
without moisture. So a little bit of moisture is totally fine. Now, this blend, if you have standing water, no, it's not gonna produce like it would in drier climate. So definitely, I mean, if you get some rain here and there, like, and then you get in a drought, like it thrives in the drought seasons.
Okay. So, do you
One
have a suggestion of something that when we do have some standing water, because there are times in this year we were so wet that we'll survive.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're not planting it in that standing water, but let's say you get it planted, everything's good, and then you get some heavy rain and we've got standing water. What is a seed that might do well down here or in some of the southern states in that situation?
So that one is kind of hard to the only thing that I would really have right now I'm gonna be working with some biologists to kind of incorporate more of that southern region for you, Brian, down there before we come down there. But like right now, the only other thing that I would have would be a good food source would be mallard's roost. And that's like a sorghum type grain blend that produces, massive seed heads and it's mostly for a waterfowl blend, but you
Hmm.
can use the screen. But you can plant this stuff in 2 foot of standing water and it's gonna
Got it.
grow.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So that the Sunny Delight, are you getting the same type of protein content? Are you that you're getting with your Sutton Grunt and or your Legacy blend? Is it also a higher protein content?
It's gonna be very, very similar. I wanna say it's at like 32% protein, but it produces a lot of forage. So that's something that is also important.
Okay. Spook, do you think that are there places in Tennessee that have some more of this drier soil that might do well, or is that, you think more of a Georgia, Florida, Louisiana, maybe not Louisiana, but Texas and some of your drier states?
Most of our so it gets really dry here in September and a lot of times August, September. The ridges, some of these poor ridges that we have will just be brutally dry in the summer. And it's hard for any clover to survive that from a standpoint of staying green. Now, as long as you can it generally when you do get rain, it'll jump back. And I like to go in there and hit it with a little fertilizer right before I see a rain coming, just to pep it up, and then when it rains, it'll jump right back up quickly. So but yeah, we're pretty fortunate here. I mean, we have good soil types for the most part, except on some of these poor ridge tops can be a little challenging, but still, clover does good here.
No, I got you.
Yeah.
What about in Texas, Danny? Is that in the drier parts of Texas? Would that Sunny Delight do well there too?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I have a couple clients down there that bought some last year, and they said that it did pretty well. One of them sent me pictures, which I'll have to share that with you too, that you could put on here. But yeah, as far as anything Georgia down is gonna be, beneficial to that blend, the Sandy
Got it.
Delight.
Okay, perfect. Well, look, thank you for that because I think a lot of times, there are certain parts of the country, we get overlooked at relative to
Mhm.
drier conditions and or some of the different soils down here, and we need all the nutrition that we can get. You don't just use protein from a pellet standpoint, but if you can
No.
combine a good protein, food source along with the food plot, that's you're really covering your bases. So okay, I
Yeah,
love it.
and deer are browse animals, you gotta balance out their diet. You can't just feed them supplemental feed and think that that's gonna be enough. They're natural browse animals. But I usually tell people though, like for instance, the Sandy Delight, like I said, that there's some species in there that us up here in the northern state would have no idea what it would look like if it was to come up. So I usually recommend people like you have a seed analysis tag, and I'm one of the only, if not the only food plot company that has 100% transparent labeling. So the exact species to the T with a 99% purity rate, like what's on the label is what's going to grow, but do your research on those species so you know what it looks like when it comes up. Because like I said, that blend it's very stemmy. It produces something different than what we're used to seeing. So yeah, I always recommend people to look up the species that's in the container so you know what you're looking for when it starts to come up.
Just like Spook reads the food labels when he's in the grocery store, making sure he's not putting anything impure in that body, right, brother?
I try to when I try to, yeah.
Maybe it's Marty that's reading the labels
This
on your behalf.
this body's getting older. I got to be more and more careful.
That's it. Well, look, Danny, here's what I would ask, and that is how to, or let me ask you this right now for the next 3 months. What advice would you give a landowner that, maybe has, done some, food plots, moderate success, not doing the protein, or maybe they're only doing it in, July, August timeframe? What would be like a checklist of things to do over the next 3 months? And then we'll obviously get into, the summer months of things to do, but to really set yourself up for a multi-year plan. It's not just about this year. Obviously, you want to have success, but what are some of those things they could do right now to help kickstart off this year to have a good fall this year and the next year and the following year?
So right now, one of the things that I love to do, we have snow here, so I love to see where the deer are moving, their patterns, just to help try to transition some of those areas for later season, next hunting season. But then I'd be mindful of staying out of there because we want to find their sheds. So try to not put too much pressure on the property right now. But as far as a feed standpoint, the protein is going to be crucial. If you can start feeding protein, even if it's February and March, hey, if you can only do 2 months of protein, that's when I would do it. And then you're going to follow in your mineral, start hitting like July, August time frames, like when they start putting on the most bone growth, break it up into those times. And then as far as frost seeding, like if you got some clover plots that are kind of struggling a little bit and you want to get them built up, there's a reason why I put certain clover species and certain chicory species in that blend, and it's because whether it's drought tolerant, whether it's producing the protein, the forage, like it all kind of goes into it. But that's another thing is if you want to get those plots fulfilled, frost seeding's the next thing. Like get out there and frost seed those clover plots and get those established.
Okay. So if somebody wants to check out some of the products, flawlesswhitetail.com.
Mm. Yeah, you can go to
Okay.
flawlesswhitetail.com. I've had a lot of people since the ATA reaching out about bulk orders, so that's something that I'm being mindful about. This this year is if we get some people, Justin, for instance, over in Oklahoma. I mean, we drove 12 hours, 14 hours to deliver 10 pallets of feed out there to him. So I yeah, everything's on the website. I'll be honest, when people order 50-pound bags, I don't make a dime. I lose about a million dimes because of shipping costs. So, if anybody wants bulk ordering, just pick up the phone and call. Like my number's on there, James's number's on there, and we can do that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I mean, obviously, if people have questions, they can reach out to Spook and I, and we'll direct them to you. And I know, Spook, you do that all the time already. As far as anything else that you guys are really focused on for 2026, anything that you want to have a little teaser about this year? You guys have a lot going on. You got the food plots, you got the seeds, you got mineral, you got the protein, you've got the scents, you're building your deer farm. And we'll get into all the scent stuff later on, but anything that you want to give some teasers about that you guys are working on for 2026?
Stay tuned and just watch all the products that I have is also going to be backed by the herd that we're raising. So to be able to see the results firsthand, obviously I have tons of trail camera footage of, month to month, year to year breakdown of growth since using the mineral, the trophytine mineral. But now we're gonna start plugging in the genetic side. So the difference where we can keep when we can have the essential nutrient value and as organic as possible and ingredient based, and then start to plug in the genetics with the deer that we're raising. That's all going to be records to keep, and it's backed by science.
We've already switched up the feed for the deer, the pen deer, a little bit, and we're just gonna keep track of how that works out, which means if that works out good, it's also gonna go into the trophytine like the
It's go
protein feed.
it's we have a certain ingredient that we're trying, and I don't really wanna I'm not gonna leak it out just yet, but it's help with immune boosting, but also to help prevent diseases. And it's an all natural it's not a supplement, but it's an all natural ingredient. And we have it into the protein pellet now too for the pen deer. So obviously EHD is a pretty bad thing around here. So that is just a little bit of a teaser. And if that goes and say we don't get hit with EHD this summer and we got others around that hits us, I'm pretty certain that feed's gonna have something to do with it.
Love it. Love it. So, Spook, before we wrap up, anything from your standpoint, this time of year that you would give, some suggestions on to and again, from a deer nutrition standpoint to really focus on over the next 2 to 3 months?
Yeah, mainly the things that we've talked about. I mean, now too is the perfect time to get your mineral out there. I mean, now is when we're going to have snow and ice and rain and stuff from now into the spring. And so it gives that mineral time to work itself in with the dirt. And so it's a great time to get the mineral out. This is a great time to contact me about consults on your habitat management. Obviously, I'm going to be heavily persuasive into using Danii's products in the course of that because I do believe in them. Obviously, that's why we're here. But this is the perfect time to make the plans to transition take your farm, your ranch to the next level. There's no leaves on the trees. It's easy to see what's going on. It's easy to see where deer are traveling. There's no crops out yet. We don't have to worry about getting on them or whatever. And if there's some transition you need to make in your habitat before your crops go in, now's the time for us to look at that property and get a plan together and a strategy together. And I know there's several people out there doing it, and I'm sure a lot of these guys, are fairly intelligent on what they're trying to tell you. I just don't know that any of them have killed 2200s. So that's my selling point.
No, I can see behind you. You've had a little success at that. There's no question, my man. And look, definitely reach out to Spook. And the thing I would say about Danii and Flawless and James is the transparency.
Mhm.
When you are transparent about product and you see it on a label and then you see the success, and James just talked a little bit about it. We'll post some of those pictures from his farm, and we'll post some from us down here in Florida. It's hard to not jump on board, and there's no smoke and mirrors. There's no big branding here. Spook, you've obviously had a lot of success with the product, and that's why you're here too. And I'm loving being a part of this, and seeing what Danii and Flawless are becoming as a company. So go check them out and read and see some of the examples. But I think the biggest takeaway for me is the transparency that she's providing, and that there's no smoke and mirrors, and that it's just a quality product.
Brian, the people like yourself that really, really know me and know how my brain works, it's 100% of what can I do and use to make me as successful as possible in the field when I'm chasing a giant deer, or obviously when I'm trying to grow a giant, which all goes hand in hand.
Mhm.
And, there's a lot of products out there. There's a lot of people pushing different things. Think that most everybody gets caught up in the how to make the most money and marketing side of it rather than what's actually best for the deer and what will help you make you the most successful. And those are the things that I try to focus on. And that's why I only use products that I feel 100% confident is going to make me as successful as possible.
No, amen. And so, Danii and James, any last thoughts for today? And thank you for sharing. Like I said, we're going to have a lot of these discussions this year on nutrition and strategy for food plots, and really help people dissect and dig in to help them up their game. And as Spook said, to grow a healthier deer herd with obviously bigger antlers is the goal for doing all this.
Yeah, I just really want to just say thank you. Thanks for the support and this guy pushing me outside of my comfort zone, cuz sometimes that's needed to grow. You can't grow if you're comfortable. So just really everybody that stands behind me to push me to my full potential. Sometimes I think I'm kind of blinded by what I'm capable of doing, but I know it's here, in my heart. So I just really want to say thank you for everybody who has supported Flawless and continues to, and anybody that's willing to, reach out and help support not just the company but the passion behind it.
Love it.
That's awesome. I don't want people to be blinded by the fact that, here's a female involved in a part of the business that normally females don't get involved in. There again, I'm looking for the whatever maximizes my opportunity in the field. And I think that's with Danii and James and Flawless. And so, you know, put that aside, put your egos aside, and let's go with what makes us the most successful.
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely. Go
you
ahead,
can
James.
you can call me, but I'll probably still direct you over here. I mean, the science and the brain and the work and just the effort of it, knowing what she has, like, and I'm still learning. Like, I've come a long ways, but don't be afraid to trust the process. And Danielle will be the first one to tell you to be patient with it, and she'll get you where you need to go, and she'll teach you the way. And that's what I love about her is just she takes all the time you need to explain everything. So yeah.
Look, James, you said three things that are key there to me, just in general in life and business and sport and everything. One is trust the process. Two is you got to have a good product or good science behind it. And 3, the coaching along the way to be able to navigate, and you don't feel like you're doing it alone. And, you're one person and you can't touch every single thing, but you sure give it everything you got to help people that are trying to use your product to ensure they're successful. There are not that many companies out there that handhold and give that kind of concierge service that you want to give to your customers. So I commend you for that. So look, great conversation today. Appreciate it, Spook. Thank you for your insights. But, most importantly, Danii and James, thank you both. And Danii, I'm so excited for you and your company this year and what's to come.
Thank you.
It's
Perfect.
all about patience.
It's all about
Patience.
patience.
Patience.